All right, let's talk about the parts of speech. Nouns, verbs, adjectives. We all feel like we've got this stuff down cold. It's the absolute foundation of grammar, the first thing we learn. But what if I told you that foundation is maybe just a little bit shaky? I mean, we all had this definition drilled into us in school, right? A noun is a person, place, or thing. It's simple, it's catchy, and it's also not really the whole story. So the real question is, how well does that little rule actually hold up when you start to poke at it? And right away, you can see the problem. For the words on the left, it works perfectly. A boy is a person. School is a place. A dog is a thing. Check, check, and check. But then you look at the words on the right. Is honesty a thing you can put in your pocket? Is failure a place you can visit? And what about laughter? These are all definitely nouns, but they just don't fit into that neat little person, place, or thing box.
So before we go any further, let's do a quick refresher. Let's just run through that classic system that we were all taught back in grade school.
First up, of course, are the nouns. They're the stars of the show. Eventually, the definition got a little upgrade to include idea, which helps. This lets us categorize everything from a general teacher to a very specific proper noun like Harry Potter. Basically, they're just the names for, well, everything.
Then you've got the engine of the sentence, the verbs. These are our action words, the words that get things done. They tell us what's happening, whether it's happening right now, happened yesterday, or is going to happen tomorrow.
And finally, we have the words that add all the flavor, adjectives. They're the decorators. They jump in and describe the nouns, answering questions like what kind or how many. They're the reason it's not just a car, but a fast red car.
Okay, so that's the system. Seems simple enough. But this is exactly where things start to get messy. Because when we rely only on those simple definitions, the lines between these categories get really blurry, and that leads to some of the most common mistakes people make when they write.
When linguists study student writing, they find something really interesting. One of the single biggest problems isn't complicated sentence structure, it's just using the wrong form of a word. People are constantly mixing up these parts of speech.
Here's a perfect example. You don't even have to be a grammar expert to just feel that the sentence on the left is off. The writer is trying to describe the task, right? So they need a describing word, an adjective, difficult. But instead, they grabbed the name of the concept, the noun, difficulty.
And here's another classic mix-up, this time between a verb and a noun. The sentence is trying to name the thing that exists, so it needs a name, a noun, competition. It's not trying to do the action, so using the verb compete just doesn't work. It's a small difference, but it's absolutely crucial.
So, if the old rules are so messy they actually cause errors, is there a better way to think about all this? Well, linguists would say, yes, absolutely. And it involves sorting words into two very different kinds of categories.
The first category is what we call an open class. Think of it like a club with the doors wide open. Nouns, verbs, adjectives, adverbs, they all live here. And whenever we invent a new idea or a new technology, a new word like selfie or to Google something just walks right in. This group is always growing and changing with us.
But the other category is the closed class, and this is like a super exclusive club with a bouncer at the door and a very strict guest list. This is where words like pronouns, he, she, it, and prepositions, in, on, at, live. This set is pretty much fixed. I mean, can you imagine waking up one day and finding out we'd invented a new preposition? It just doesn't happen.
So that brings up a really interesting question. Why do we have these categories in the first place, and why do they sometimes feel like they don't quite fit the English language? Well, the answer is kind of fascinating. It's because our whole system of grammar is basically borrowed.
This quote really hits the nail on the head. Our rules for English grammar, the ones we all learn, were never actually designed for English. For hundreds of years, we've been trying to jam the square peg of our language into the round hole of Latin grammar.
And you can literally trace this journey through history. The whole idea started way back with philosophers like Plato in ancient Greece. Then the Romans took those ideas and baked them into the grammar for Latin. And then, centuries and centuries later, a bunch of scholars in 18th century England decided to just take that Latin system and apply it directly to English. And, spoiler alert, it wasn't exactly a perfect fit.
Okay, so let's recap. The person, place, or thing rule is incomplete. The entire system is a hand-me-down from another language. So, how are we supposed to figure this out? How do modern linguists actually identify what a word is doing in a sentence? Well, they have a much more sophisticated way of looking at it.
Instead of relying on one simple and kind of flawed rule, Linguists look at a word from 3 different angles. First, they look at its semantics. What does the word mean at its core? Is it more like an object or an action? Then they look at pragmatics. What is its job in the conversation? Is it introducing someone or is it stating that something happened? And finally, they look at the formal criteria. How does the word actually behave? Can you add an S to make it plural? Where can it sit in a sentence? It's this 3-pronged approach that gives us the real picture.
So all of this leaves us with one last really big question. Language isn't a museum piece. It's alive. It's constantly changing and evolving. We invent new words and we find new ways to use old ones. So does that mean that these categories we've just talked about, these parts of speech, are set in stone forever? Or, as our language continues to change, will the very boxes we use to sort our words have to change too?